Bit of a testy day in Canberra there for the Albanese government. Support, of course, for the Voice continues to tank. I reckon we're headed for a 60-40 defeat for the PM's Voice as things stand. He's clearly on the back foot. A particular day in question time, the opposition continuing to press the government about the inconsistencies and lack of detail in the referendum proposal. Today, the LNP member for Herbert, Phil Thompson, asked this question, which received a remarkable response from the Prime Minister.
Has the Prime Minister now read the statement from the Heart in full?
I have read the Uluru Statement from the Heart in full. It's on the wall in my office, and here it is. There are people who have backgrounds on this in the Liberal Party, a former Chief of Staff, indeed, to a Liberal Prime Minister, Chris Kenny, who's made a very clear statement. He says this about the nonsense about the Uluru Statement. He says this: the claim is false. The longest statement claim is a confection aimed at sustaining a scare campaign, but incredibly some persist with it.
PM's kidding himself here. Now, as I played on the show last night, one of the authors of the Uluru Statement, Megan Davies, Professor Megan Davies, said this recently.
The Uluru Statement, that the painting, I think, was something that we decided at the meeting, but really the Uluru Statement is a very important 18-page document that I say as a constitutional lawyer is a very important constitutional document because it really sets out for all Australians the logic for this reform.
Many pages as a constitutional law professor, she says, is a very important constitutional document. The bloke running the country has not even read it. And of course, it is the pathway to treaty. Treaty, she says, and says so in the document, is the culmination of our agenda. And the PM, though, still wants to accuse anyone who says anything otherwise as being part of some sort of conspiracy theory. Joining me to discuss this and more, the Daily Telegraph's National Affairs editor, of course, Sky News host as well, James Morrow, and the Australian newspaper's Sophie Elsworth. Well, Sophie, I've got to say to you, you're right for the media section. How does he keep getting away with this? Where are the other journalists calling him out? And where are the so-called fact checkers holding his feet to the fire on this issue, holding him to account?
Well, Peter, firstly, fact checkers are in absolute turmoil, as we know, the RMIT Fact Lab with the issues it's had and its relationship being suspended with Meta. So they're in dire straits. You've got a largely left-leaning media in Australia that is supportive of the Voice. They want to go along with this. They want the referendum to succeed. So they don't want people to really wise up and read this entire document. And Peter, I would argue this is gaslighting at its finest. Megan Davies has said herself this document is longer than one page. They're her own words. So for some reason now, those words don't seem to count. It's just completely and utterly bizarre. And Peter, I'll finish on saying this. I suggest every journalist and every Australian should go and read that document, those 26 pages that you've been reporting on for months, because in it has some pretty damning stuff, including about payments, reparations, and I suggest the Australian public are aware of this so that they can make their own minds up when they go to vote on October 14.
James, the reason why I keep fighting on this issue is not just because the government has said we're committed to the Uluru Statement in full, which begs the question, well, what's the full Uluru Statement have to say? But this is FOI documents, this is FOI material from lawyers on the record. This is Pat Anderson, as you've seen there, obviously Megan Davies, on the record for 6 years. The pages vary because it depends whether they're footnoted or end-noted and whether or not they include the diagram. So it's 18 or 26, somewhere in that range, but it's not a one-page poster. But the reason I'm fighting this so hard is if we let the principle stand, that the facts don't matter, that you can just cancel anything online with a bit of pressure from the left on big tech, this is how elections will be run in this country. This is what will happen in Australia after this referendum. So I think whether you're yes or no in this debate, every single voter has a stake in making sure the facts must stand and be debated.
Well, absolutely right, Peta. And I'll tell you something, you know, I have done a lot of work on this as well. As you know, last week in the Daily Telegraph, I reported on the new book, the official book by Megan Davies and Pat Anderson, that's supposed to be, you know, the official authorized biography of the Uluru Statement from the Heart. And in that book, which was obviously sent to the printers months ago before this whole thing became a controversy, it said this was a 15-page document and that this was not something that was, you know, just one page. It said there was a one-page pitch document that was part of the much bigger thing. And I reported on this. And when I went to the Uluru Dialogue, Peta, and said, what do you respond to this? What do you say to this? It was like something out of the Eastern Bloc. The response came back at 5:30 p.m. The Uluru Statement is 439 words. It is a one-page document that sets out the agenda for the Voice Department, blah, blah, blah. And they just acted like nothing in their own book was in there, Peta.